simplifies the mechanics of what we're trying to accomplish. And so with that in mind, I'm going to defer to our council to share with you the work that has been done in this regard.
Thank you. To kind of bring everybody up to date, long ago, the city adopted as a violation of city code all violations of state law that were misdemeanors or violations. And violations in that context has a special meaning. Some offenses are classified as violations. So we didn't adopt all state law, but only those that were declared to be misdemeanors or violations. Emergency gubernatorial orders are neither misdemeanors nor violations. So they are unclassified offenses. So our adopting ordinance that incorporates state law does not incorporate gubernatorial orders because they are not declared to be misdemeanors or violations. That was great until Rule 20 of the Alabama Rules of Criminal Procedure was enacted. That rule only allows for the issuance of a citation for certain offenses that are on a schedule or list contained within that rule. Violations of emergency gubernatorial orders are not on the schedule. So we haven't adopted an ordinance which makes gubernatorial orders a city code violation. They're not listed on the Rule 20 schedule. So right now, for violations of emergency gubernatorial orders, the only option that Jasper Police Department has to enforce this state law, which it is sworn to uphold, is custodial arrest. So your police department, I think, generated this proposal that we come up with a way that they could issue non-traffic citations in lieu of placing people under custodial arrest for violation of the governor's order. I was out sick and at home when this first came up, but the first thing that we did was prepare a local ordinance, because our officers can issue citations for violation of local ordinances. The first draft that we prepared closely tracks the Tuscaloosa ordinance, which is in some ways stricter than the governor's order, and in some ways, frankly, more lenient. It is, at least it explains some of the exceptions better than the governor's order. But it is stricter in some ways. That is the draft that has been widely circulated. After Friday's meeting, we prepared an ordinance which could be adopted by the council, which could identically track the governor's order. And I have done that, and that is certainly something that this council is authorized to adopt. In the meantime, this, I guess, anomaly or this odd situation with us not adopting state laws that are not misdemeanors or violations was brought to our attention. And it occurred to me, and we've spoken with Judge Brakefield, who was very helpful and very available and accessible to discuss this, and who knows more about Rule 20 than your city attorney does, since he handles criminal procedure all the time. And we determined that perhaps the simplest and easiest way to address this situation would be to simply remove the qualifying language from our adopting ordinance, which is section 1-8 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jasper, to provide that we adopt all violations of state laws as violations of the municipal code. That way, if, say, for example, the governor comes back later and enacts an emergency order, which is more strict or less strict than the existing order, we don't have to come back and try to hit a moving target by adopting a new ordinance every time that happens. This would be sort of, for lack of a better term, a blanket adoption of not only misdemeanors, not only violations, but also of other violations of Alabama law, specifically in this case, these emergency gubernatorial orders. So I have drafted an ordinance which would do that. It is easily the shortest of the three, but it simply would amend section 1-8 subsection B of our code of ordinances to say, any person who is guilty of violating any provision of a law or laws of the state now existing or hereinafter enacted, and who does so within the city limits or police jurisdiction of the city of Jasper, Alabama, shall upon conviction be punished by a fine of not less than $1 nor more than $500. In addition thereto, any person so convicted may be imprisoned or sentenced to hard labor for the city for a period not exceeding 6 months at the discretion of the court trying the case, provided, however, no penalty shall consist of a fine or sentence of imprisonment exceeding the maximum fine and sentence established under state law for the commission of substantially similar offenses. That language tracks the language in the emergency order statute with regard to the punishment, the penalty. So there is no more strict penalty imposed than is already imposed by state law for this violation. And then this ordinance could become effective upon passage and publication as required by the Code of Alabama. So I'm certainly available